Hey there, I'm Chris Coleman, Artistic Director at the Denver Center Theatre Company, and I'm super excited to share with you what we've got coming up next season. We're going to start with Light Up the Sky by Moss Hart. And this play finds a group of theater makers in the 40s in Boston, out-of-town tryout for this crazy new, very kind of experimental play. And the first act, they're all just like so lovey-dovey and so excited and so warm to each other. And then the second act happens after opening night, and they think it's been a complete failure. And then they turn on each other and they're completely horrible and vicious and mean. And then the third act, they actually find out that there are good reviews, and then they're all lovey-dovey again. In the middle of it is this young playwright who's untested, and it's his first introduction to this crazy, ruthless world of theater makers, and he has to confront that and decide whether or not he wants to kind of stick with it. It's hilarious. It has that kind of rat-a-tat-tat-tat, old-timey movie dialogue, super fun, wisecracky, and kind of larger-than-life theater types. The next show is Angry Raucous and Shamelessly Gorgeous by Pearl Cleage. This play is about a black performance artist who created a piece called Naked Wilson, like 20, 25 years ago, where she would perform male monologues from August Wilson's work naked. And it was a protest of what she saw as how women were relegated to the sidelines in Wilson's plays, and how Wilson's dominance in the American theater really pushed aside other voices. What I think is really human about this story is it's about a woman who is now 65. She's been invited back to Atlanta to perform her famous piece. The organizers get cold feet. They think that we really, is it a good idea for a 65-year-old naked woman to perform live on stage? And so they hire a young woman who is a burlesque artist and also an adult film actress to perform it. And, of course, the woman who originated it is scandalized. It's really about generations, talking across generations, two women who speak very different languages, have very different values, and at first, really don't like each other very much, and find some détente, some understanding of each other. Susan Booth, who is Pearl's longtime collaborator, who's the artistic director of the Alliance Theater in Atlanta, is going to come and direct it for us. And then we will reopen the Stage Theater, which will now be the Wolf Theater, the newly beautifully renovated Wolf Theater, in November, and we will re-inaugurate it with our beloved production of A Christmas Carol. Some new things on stage. There'll be some new costumes that we're building for this one, and there'll be a couple of new cast members, so a little bit of reworking. I think there's a new scene that we're implementing into this version, but it will still be the very classic, beloved Christmas Carol. And so then in the winter in the Jones Theater, we're going to do Lucy Kirkwood's fascinating play, The Children. It takes place on the northeast coast of England. A tsunami has recently hit and created a lot of damage at a nuclear power plant that's about 15 miles away. And this older couple who used to work at the plant have been kind of displaced from their farmhouse. They're in kind of a shabby apartment. And an old friend and colleague shows up on their doorstep because they're contemplating, do we stay? We're just outside the uninhabitable zone, but not that far. Is it safe for us to stay? Do we have any responsibility in going back and trying to clean up the mess? And in the midst of this kind of environmental world, the romance between these three people surfaces in a way that is, I think, a little surprising and interesting, intriguing. We don't always see plays or stories about mature, seasoned folks still exploring their romantic selves. So it's a really finely crafted story that juxtaposes the tension of this outer calamity with the interior relationships of the three individuals. This season, we're doing 2050, You Lost Me, that came out of last season's New Play Summit. This next season, we're going to do two other shows that came out of the New Play Summit. We're going to do Bofill Berry's In the Upper Room, which is a big audience favorite at the Summit. It's an African-American family in the 1970s, 3 generations living in the same home. And there is a mystery around the matriarch of this family, Rose, who is an older, very strong, ferocious, somewhat intimidating personality. And there are a lot of questions about what her history is, what her relationship to the rest of her family is, what her relationship to spirituality, the occult is. And most of the characters in the play are trying to figure out how to navigate around her, how to protect themselves from her, how to keep from being swallowed up by her. It's a big American family play. There are nosy aunts that keep poking their heads in. There's a ton of humor. And I think it's about trying to figure out how to chart your own course in the force of somebody so formidable. Then in The Wolf, we're going to premiere Rattlesnake Kate. It's a Colorado story. Comes out of this region. That is something in my career that is something that I really love finding. Its music is composed by a Colorado artist, Neyla Pekarek, who toured with the Lumineers for a decade. So this play takes place, it starts before 1925, but the seminal event is in 1925, Kate Slaughterback, true story, up near Greeley. She's on her farm. She's on her horse with her 3-year-old son going to get the mail, and she spots 5 rattlesnakes. She takes out a rifle. She shoots them all. That pulls forth another 135 rattlesnakes. She has the presence of mind to grab a no hunting sign and kill the remaining rattlesnakes, so 140 total. She then takes the skins home and sews a flapper dress and has herself photographed and becomes world famous. They write about her in London and Chicago and Los Angeles. And she spends a good chunk of her life trying to figure out how to turn that into financial stability, success, an opportunity to support her and her family. And meanwhile, she has 6 different husbands. She's always trying to find the match, the guy who's going to know what to do with her. And it's really a story about a woman the world wasn't quite ready for. Music is incredible. Music feels very contemporary. There's a lot of energy in it. There's a lot of intensity in it. There's a ton of humor. And I'm excited to see not only how this can resonate for Denver, but then also how maybe it can have a life outside of Denver. Then the last show in the Jones is going to be a play some of you have heard of before by this playwright, Edward Albee. It's a play called Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? It's about, a professor and his wife who come home one night after a faculty party, and they've had a few, and they invite a young couple also on faculty, this small university, to visit them. And it's just the craziest night ever. There are so many demons this couple is wrestling with that surface through the course of the conversation and the evening. But it is like a brilliant, dazzling, funny train wreck. You cannot take your eyes off of it because you can't believe what's happening. And that's going to be in that tiny little Jones Theater. I can't wait to see what that's going to be like. The final show in the space is a play I love immensely, Mojada by Luis Alfaro. Mojada, a Medea in Los Angeles. And this play, he has taken a family that has immigrated illegally from Mexico to the U.S. and are trying to make their way. The husband is doing pretty well. He's assimilating pretty well. He's working in construction. He is getting opportunities. He's moving up. His wife, Medea, is a seamstress and is struggling and is really feeling the pull of the old country intensely and is feeling like a fish out of water. The tension between them is real. There's a ton of humor in it. There's a sense of lyricism and poetry in the piece, magic realism, if you will, and the supernatural, and ultimately it's a tragedy. The final show on the Wolf Theater will be *EMMA* by Jane Austen. Kate Hamill is an actress and writer, and she, over the last decade, has really kind of made a name for herself doing these very irreverent adaptations of Jane Austen and others. They lean toward the comedic more than you would expect a Jane Austen adaptation to. So it's not that traditional Emma, well-to-do young woman, fancies herself a successful matchmaker, and is trying to find a good match for her good friend. Her friend thinks she has found the right guy. Emma doesn't approve of her and kind of pushes him away, and all kinds of shenanigans ensue. And then, of course, things go along and they find out, they probably were with the right person in the first place. This adaptation, the language is super funny, but it's also very, very fresh, and it definitely leans toward the full-out comedic than just the elegant and romantic.